Coming at the end of the Sermon on the Mount, in the midst of a discussion about how to live, the disciples hear of an unimaginable abundance. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put into your lap. Of course, how one sees that abundance is up to the individual. What, only a good measure, pressed down, shaken together? What, only a teeming lapful? Or, oh my gosh, I can't believe this shocking abundance. One of my great privileges this past year was the opportunity to work with the Reimagining Philanthropy Task Force that came about as a result of a bequest from Jean Kunis. Once again, we thank and honor Jean for her generosity, an abundance that both surprised and awed us. Jean left a gift of $1.71 million to Union Congregational Church a little over a year ago. When we first heard about Jean's gift, many of us began to discern how we would, as individuals, like to appropriate her bequest. Some folks thought about their favorite ministry interests. Some thought of the future of the church. Some thought about big projects that we could take on. Some thought about the dozen little projects that they wanted to see happen. And it all worked out to this. Jean's gift was and is a lot of money. But it is easy to spend a lot of money very quickly when you have 504 members who are passionate about many different things and have differing philosophies regarding saving or investing or reaching out in faith, and the list goes on. Our leadership council, after plenty of dialogue, formed a task force that became the Reimagining Philanthropy Task Force and offered an initial charge to that group. Ask big questions about Union's philosophy regarding outreach and the nature and purpose of charity. Ask big questions about what other churches have done when receiving a large gift. Has the gift negatively impacted their stewardship? What did they do with their gift? What were the outcomes and what would they change? Ask big questions about Union's mission for the next 2 to 4 years. What societal trends will help point the congregation in a particular direction going forward? And as we go, engage all of you in these questions. We did this by reading together. We did this by engaging about our vision together. That's the document that became that is the statement of purpose that became the document that we will vote on after worship today. We discussed the nature and purpose of investment together, thanks to our session with Natural Investments in November. We discussed how much is enough for Union, how much is enough for us as families, and how much is enough for us as people last fall. The task force met regularly for a year. The members are David Conrad, Ina Sobi, Lisa Kaufman, Melissa Rack, myself, Tanya Switzer, Lindsay Turner, Karen Whitehouse, and Darian Wilson, who moved to Delaware last year. We ultimately offered the Leadership Council 7 recommendations that encompass broad swaths of our community life that fit our understanding of our vision of life together and help provide some direction for the Leadership Council in determining ways to improve our life together now and in the future. The Leadership Council will engage the congregation in these recommendations more methodically and with intention going forward. I will not either attempt to just list the 7 and just kind of throw them at you, nor can I go through these recommendations with any kind of serious depth right this minute. The paper that was offered to the Leadership Council was 10,000 words, which in comparison to a book is not that long, but the way that I typically read a sermon, 10,000 words mean we will be here for at least an hour, so I'm not going to do that today. The primer regarding the recommendations is this. We recommend to the Leadership Council that we must fuel ministry at Union now and in the future. We must pay attention to broader societal trends and get prepared for them now. We must treat our people, especially our staff, as well as we can. We must re-examine what our understanding of investment is, and we must make sure that our current dreams take off. So let me now break those out for you. We must fuel ministry now. One of the recommendations we made to the Leadership Council is that Jean's gift provide us with some nimbleness and flexibility to respond to the ministry passions and desires of our members. Congregationalism some of you may have noticed, is not that nimble. By design, it is not that nimble. But some calls to action require what I like to call ministry accelerant. Sometimes you've got to go, and you've got to go pretty soon. The members of our outreach team do a good job of allocating resources to empower ministry, and we increasingly want to focus on ministry that happens locally and identify partner organizations that support the work that we do. So we partner with CUMAC and CWS and the other things that David mentioned earlier. But what happens when suddenly a project comes along that's not in our budget and is a must for us? Perhaps we suddenly feel the call or hear the need to harbor somebody, or we must develop a curriculum or start something brand new and it can't wait for the budget for next year. How can you start something without capital? How can you give voice to a dream that wakes you in the night if your second thought after having the epiphany is, forget it, there's no money, I'm going back to sleep, and the dream is gone? We want to make sure that doesn't happen at Union by creating a ministry fund that members can tap into together to enact those new dreams of the ministers of the church. And by ministers, I mean you. I am a pastor, Lindsay is a pastor, but we are all ministers, for ministers are all God's people, and all God's people have a ministry. The second thing that I want to talk about relates to staffing. We are concerned about volunteerism in America and how that impacts the church in general. We recognize that whatever happens in the future, and it's sometimes difficult to predict, it is, though, exceedingly unlikely that volunteer rates in Montclair are going to escalate. And even if they do, it is unlikely that they will escalate in such a way that they are focused on one institution. I see it over and over in other areas of my life, and we can lament this all day long, but it happens. People feeling extended to the degree that they have to carve out time with their children or spouses. Hey, second child of mine, I will make you my 2:30 on Thursday. Keynes was obviously an astute individual, but to some degree, in his evaluation of the good life, the very opposite of what Keynes thought would happen has taken place. That as a society became more prosperous, the less people would work. Keynes believed that by now we would all average 12 hours of work a week. There are two bands of people in our society that are working similar hours to those in the Industrial Revolution era. Those who are struggling to make ends meet, and those who belong to what we generally define as the upper middle class. Whether it's fear or need or the pleasure one derives from a vocation, because some of us have the luxury now of enjoying work to the degree that we actually like doing lots of it. But the average amount of work happening in our community has not and is unlikely to decline. This means in the future in Montclair, volunteer hours are unlikely to increase. And we have lots to do at our church. That means that if we want the same thing done in the future, we face some difficult choices. Eliminate the task, do it more efficiently, give it to a staff person and tell them to figure it out, or we bring in more staff, all to do the same tasks. While we did not offer the Leadership Council a comprehensive staffing plan for the future, we think it wise for the LC to be cognizant of and responsive to this trend. How can you do what you want to do in an organization that is reliant upon volunteer members when those volunteer members perceive the primary source of scarcity in their life to be around not their income or their retirement or their college savings, although those are stressors, but the primary source of scarcity in their lives they perceive is their time? The third recommendation is based on staffing compensation. In a similar vein to our staffing levels, our congregation must ensure that we balance cultural norms with our calling to not just respect how our staff get their jobs done, but how our staff are compensated. This is not to suggest that Union is not generous, but we live, and I know you know this, in a time where if your healthcare insurance premium rose 7% last year, you were somehow considered lucky. Union has several part-time and permanent employees that work too little to receive health insurance from Union Cong, and too much that it is unlikely that they can receive such insurance from another job. In other words, we hope that they get it through their spouses, or they can make other adjustments in their lives to afford it themselves. Simply put, it is a deep concern that when someone receives a cost of living increase each year in their pay, that increase cannot keep pace with actual real-life cost increases. It may well turn out that Union does as much as it can to ensure that our part-time employees are taken care of. But we recommended to the LC that they study how to balance the budget of the congregation while also seeking to make our permanent part-time employees as whole as possible, and to do so in concert with our nursery school program. If we are to be an organization that is whole, just, and believes in taking care of people, the compensation of our custodial staff and bookkeeper, nursery school office staff and teachers warrants examination in light of Jean's bequest. The measure of health for an organization is not how well the highest paid employee is compensated, but how well those who are the less visible faces, but without whom the organization would seize up and no longer function, are compensated by the church community. Number 4, investment. What is an investment? I said that and I heard like a little moving in the seat. Maybe it's either I'm taking too long or it's, what are you about to say now? What is an investment? It's something you do to make money, obviously, but is that all that it is? Does it matter how and where money is invested? This is a touchy subject for many of us because it intersects with our wallets, and it intersects with how many of us have long thought about doing things. It may sound like when we talk about impact investing or mission-related investing that what we have done in the past as individuals and as a congregation is wrong. It isn't a question of right and wrong, but more a question of how to get better. We want to get better by ensuring that there is an alignment of our mission, our ministry, and our money. We don't want to simply say that Union's money as it is invested is disconnected from everything else that we do. Immediately when we start talking like this, people will jump up and say, I'm not sacrificing financial return in order to go green or do good. So first of all, let's just say that nice and slowly. I'm not willing to sacrifice financial return in order to do good. Secondly, who says you have to? One of the exciting developments in impact investing and mission-related investing over the last 10 years or so is that you can pick what you want to do. You want to allocate 25 or 50 or 75% of your funds to market level returns and 25% to below market level returns in a field you feel driven to support because it aligns with your mission. You can do that. You want 100% of your funds to receive market level returns and also be invested in areas you support. You can do that. You want to invest in green energy. You can do that. You want to invest in sustainable agriculture. You can do that. You want to. The list goes on and on and on. And the reason that the list goes on and on is that this is not new, and it isn't fringe, and it isn't something that's going away. You want to look up how to go about impact investing? Forbes.com will give you the basics. You want to see how it's done? You can check out the Ford Foundation or the Kresge Foundation and scores of others who determined that it was no longer enough to simply invest in a manner that was not concretely tied to your mission-related goals and the work that you do. We are not asking the LC to do something radically new. We are actually asking the LC to join the scores of others in participating in this movement. We are not being thought leaders here. We are playing catch-up with the world of investment innovation out there. We recommend that the Leadership Council appoint a panel to conduct an examination of our investment guidelines and create a 5-year plan that transitions the church's investments away from traditional investment approaches and toward impact investing vehicles to align our mission, ministry, and money. We leave it to the LC to determine the volume of resources that seek no return, some return, or market level return, depending on the needs of the congregation. But we must insist that when we speak of our investment returns in the future, returns are reported in both financial and social terms. We should hear on a regular basis in the future that our investments returned X percentage in dollars and also helped fuel X kilowatt hours of green energy, or translate into X dollars of community investment, or X change in a neighborhood, whatever it is that aligns our mission, our ministry, and our money. I promise I'm almost done now. Number 5, we recommended to the LC that Gene's funds be used to support some of our current space needs. There are many good, inspiring ideas in the pipeline related to our worship space, AV needs, and so forth that you'll be hearing about soon. We know that there is real potential for those ideas to get backlogged, and eventually those dreams will die if they are not given room to grow and thrive. We simply recommend to the LC to be thoughtful and determined in bringing those dreams to fruition. And number 6, lastly for this morning, Gene's funds have been a fantastic gift to us. To A, keep going. B, think differently. C, enact positive change. It is our recommendation that Gene's bequest be utilized as the foundation fund is in helping secure the present and the future. Gene's gift cannot be the only source of revenue for the congregation going forward. Without our tithes and offerings, Union would cease to be what it is. But Gene's funds must be used in concert with our foundation fund, subject to a 5% guideline, so that interest received from Gene's bequest can support what we do in the here and now. Without that measure, we would require severe cuts to our personnel and or programming. And so, in conclusion, in this way, I hope you will see that the task force has sought to weigh the ministry of today with the ministry of tomorrow. For some of you, the task force has been far too cautious. And for others of you, we have been nowhere near cautious enough in making these recommendations. And so, I look forward to some very lively dialogue about these recommendations this spring. Thank you for your time.